Hello and welcome to part 2 of my music theory course for electronic musicians. I mean, it covers general music theory as well, so if you're not an electronic musician, you want to learn a bit about music theory, then you'll learn something, hopefully, as well. But wherever possible, I'm kind of linking everything into Ableton Live and DAWs and that kind of thing. So this lesson is going to be all about the note C, and we're going to start with middle C. Weird note to start with, I know, because you'd probably think, if you know anything about notes on a keyboard or you've watched part 1 of this series, you'll know our musical alphabet goes from A to G, and we're going to start specifically looking at the note C. The reason being, it's got a few special properties and we can do some cool stuff with C and C major scales and all this kind of thing. So without any further ado, let's head over to the keyboard and have a look at the note C. So before we get fully into it, just a reminder that there is a book in PDF format that goes with this course. You can access that by supporting me on Patreon from tier 1 and above, which is very cheap. It starts at £1, $1, €1 a month, and you will get obviously other benefits, but you will get this book which like I say is in PDF format, and it's kind of like a work in progress. There will be new chapters added as I do them, and basically it's sort of like the notes that will accompany this video. So there are links to that in the description if you want to go head over to Patreon and support me on there. So as we mentioned at the beginning, we're going to be looking at the note C. So generally, if you go and have piano lessons, this would be the first note you would learn. You would specifically learn middle C. Okay, so one of the reasons why you learn it, first of all, is it's right in the middle of the piano. Okay, so it's kind of a good place to start. And the way music is written on the piano is the treble clef goes from middle C in that half of the piano, okay, on the higher side, and then the bass clef, which you would generally play with your left hand, goes from middle C down that way. So that's one of the reasons why we start learning, because it splits the keyboard nice in half, and you've got right hand on this side, left hand on this side. There are also some other kind of cool things with C that we'll have a look at during this video. So if you remember from the last video, we said we're only going to learn like one section of the keyboard because it repeats. We have the 2 black notes, the 3 black notes, 2 black notes, and 3 black notes. So the first thing we want to look at is how do we find C, and in specific middle C, because that's like the good starting point. So to find a C, what you want to find first of all is look for any group of 2 white notes, and then C is the one that's immediately to the left of those 2 white notes. Okay, so that is a C. Okay, and that is specifically middle C because that's right in the middle of the piano. So we have loads of C's. If we start down here, so that's a C, that's a C, that's a C, that's a C, 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 and the one right up at the top as well is also a C. So if we head on over then and just have a quick look at our piano roll in Ableton Live, we've got exactly the same thing here. Let's just zoom in a little bit. Again, to find a C, you're going to look for the 2 black notes here, and C is the immediately one below them. Remember, it's exactly the same layout. The only difference is in a DAW, the piano roll is vertical rather than horizontal like another piano. So you can see how all these repeat. So you've got a C there, you've got a C there, and so on. Now you'll notice some of these have numbers next to them, the C's, right? C3 and so on. So these are telling you which octave of the keyboard that you're on. Now as I understand it, like the standard numbering for middle C is C4, which is actually up here. Now my understanding of Ableton Live is they have it as C3. Some DAWs have middle C as C3, some have it as C4. It's one of those weird things. I won't get too hung up on about it, but I think if you just look, if I go over and play, let me just put a few notes in here. I'm going to put some C3s in here. Well, if I just play this on here, okay, then play it on middle C on the piano, okay, you can hear it's the same pitch. Okay, so you know that is middle C, and C4 there would be this one here. But just to sort of prove a point, if I just play some notes on here, okay, let's get this just to loop on middle C. Now the frequency of middle C is 256 hertz. Okay, without getting too technical, but each note has its own frequency. And then so if I go over to, I've got the EQ8 in here, and if I play this, and put the cursor over here, you can see that is our main fundamental note there, and I can't get it exactly on, but there we go. It's around the 258, 56 mark. So that is definitely middle C in Ableton Live. Okay, so just be aware that it can be slightly different in each thing. So these locator numbers are quite useful if you're you're kind of doing stuff, you're sort of zoomed in on here and you can't see any of those, so you can just zoom out and you can see if you're on anything from C3 and above, it means you're on that right hand side of the piano. Anything on C3 below, it's on the left hand side of the piano. And this has got quite a big range. It goes from C-2 all the way up to C8. Okay, so you've got a big range there on the piano roll. And I guess it depends on how you start counting, because if we started counting here on the piano as C1, so that'd be 1, 2, 3, then C4 is middle C on here. If we start counting at C0, so 0, 1, 2, middle C is there, okay. But it's different. So it's either 3 or 4, put it that way, is the way to remember where middle C is. The other thing to remember as well with middle C is, obviously the middle of a keyboard is sort of subjective to what you're playing on. Obviously if you're on a full-size piano, it's pretty obvious that the middle C is going to be there right in the middle. Now if we've got a smaller like MIDI controller, which could be anything from 25 keys up to 88 keys, then you're going to have, it's going to be laid out slightly differently. So your middle C may not be right in the middle. And obviously on those controllers and things like that as well, you can actually change the octave. So even though you might think you're playing middle C, you might be playing something a little bit lower down. So generally, if you have it set on like a 0 octave setting, so you've not gone either up or down, the C that is nearest the middle is going to be middle C. That's the one that is going to help you find it, hopefully. For the purposes of my book, I'm going to say that C4 is middle C, even though it's C3 in Ableton Live, because that's, I think, the standard recognised note numbering. So I'm going to go with that for now. I think the other thing as well, just thinking about that in Ableton Live, the other thing that makes you realise that C3 is middle C is if you put a sample, say you put a sampler in and you put a sample in there and play it, let's say it's even a drum loop, and you play it off C3, it will play back at its original speed. Anything higher or lower than that it will kind of speed it up or slow it down. So again, that's another example of Ableton Live being on C3, and it's kind of like the home base, if you like, of Ableton. MIDI note numbers, let's talk briefly about those as well. You may also see on like MIDI controllers or other things, you will have, the numbers will have notes. Sorry, the notes will have numbers. Get it the right way around. So middle C is note number 60. So if you want to find that, if you're working with a DAW that has, rather than the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but has actual numbers going up and down the keyboard, you can find middle C by finding MIDI note number 60. So you're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, great, okay. He's jabbered on about middle C for ages. We can find that. Right, what's the point? Why are we starting with C and we're not starting with A? A lot of this is down to the different scales that we can have on the piano. Now, we're going to cover scales in more detail later on, but for now we're going to have a look at one of the most basic scales, which is the C major scale. So the reason we start with this one is because it's all the white notes. Okay, we use all the white notes for C major, and they all sound good together. Okay, they're all friends, they all play nicely, they don't fall out or sound a bit nasty or whatever, and you can pretty much play anything on the white notes and it's gonna sound good. Okay, they just sound all nice together. So the C major scale basically goes from C to C. So we've got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay, so that is going to be a combination. If you remember from the last lesson, we looked at semitones and tones. So basically we start with the C, we're going up a tone, we're going up a tone, then a semitone, then a tone, then a tone, then a tone, and then another semitone. And there is a little bit of a formula that you can remember to work out your scales. Again, we will look at that more in future lessons. So, as we said, everything on the white keys, they sound nice. So whether you're playing this on a piano or whether you're inputting your notes on your piano roll, if you stick with stuff in C to start with, it's going to all sound nice. If I give you a quick demonstration, I'm going to just put my foot down on the sustain pedal if I can find it. There we go. So it just makes it sound a little bit nicer with the sustain pedal. So if you're, I mean, this is something I do on my first lesson, okay? And if you've just bought a keyboard and you've got no idea how to play anything of it, whether you're going to be learning the piano or you're going to be writing some banging electronic acid tunes, a good place to start, like I say, is just with all the white notes and think about 3 different things. Okay, let's come over to this camera for a second. All you got to think about basically is which key you're going to press, how hard you're going to press it, so the volume, and when you're going to press it. So that's going to give you your different rhythms. Okay, so we could play like softly. Okay, we can have long gaps, short gaps between the notes. Okay, so I'm just making this up as I go along. You know, I'm not some crazy, amazing pianist. I can play a fair bit, but not like that. So anything on C is going to sound good. And if you want to try with both hands, all you really want to do with the left hand is underline some of the stuff that the right hand is doing. So let's say we start on a C, we'd play a C on the left hand with it. And then you see we're getting those 2 notes together. Then playing some together. Okay, everything sounds good. Again, loud and quiet. I'd always finish on a C because that's like your home base. It kind of resolves when you get to that. So just doing that, just experiment with stuff. Just, you know, play on your keyboard if you've got a keyboard, or if you're just putting notes in on your DAW, just put a load of random notes in on C, kind of see what happens. Some of the things I like to do is just record just playing this and get some nice ideas out of it. So one final tip on this one is, as great as C major is, it does sound very happy. Okay, major chords are very happy. Great for kind of up cheery pop music, but if you want to do something a little bit darker, we want to be using a minor scale. Now, every major scale has its relative minor scale, which means it has the same combination of notes. So as we've already learned, C major is just all the white notes. Now, other scales are going to be a combination of white notes and black notes, apart from A natural minor. So if you want to just use the white notes but have a darker sound, then go with A minor. So here's C major. Now if we do just the same thing but start on A, okay, it sounds a bit darker, so it's, you know, it's quite sad. Okay, dramatic ending. Okay, so just a little tip that I use a lot, that if I can't be bothered to think about my scales of white notes and black notes, go for A. I mean, its technical term is A natural minor, but I just call it A minor. Start on A, and it gives you a much darker, sort of nice sounding minor scale. So that's basically it for this video. A quick introduction to the note C, and it's going to get you started being able to hopefully play a few tunes, make some stuff up, and then we can do a nice happy poppy sounding C major or a bit of a darker A minor kind of thing. So hopefully that was of interest to you. You found that useful. Stay tuned. I'm going to try and get these videos coming out fairly regularly over the next few months, and keep the book going as well, which, as I said earlier, you can get hold of. Sorry, I'm losing my voice today. Which you can get hold of by supporting me over on Patreon. It's all much appreciated. It all really helps keep the channel going, and it gives me the inspiration to just put more, effort and money and stuff back into the channel. And usual things like subscribe. If you've got any comments, any questions, feel free to stick those in the box below. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, hit the bell button, usual things, and I'll see you on the next part. Thanks for watching.